The wind howled across the jagged cliffs of Vera 9, carrying sparks of static from the electrical storms that raged over the barren planet. Every night, the sky split with jagged bolts of violet lightning, illuminating the black volcanic rock below. From the colony perched on the edge of the southern plateau, the planet looked like a dead world, but Callan Rourke knew better. He had seen life hiding in the shadows, small and wary, watching him from the depths of the volcanic craters. Callan pulled his insulated cloak tighter against the cold. The rations in his pack were heavy, but he had carried them countless nights before. Every step along the treacherous paths felt dangerous. The cliffs crumbled underfoot, and a single misstep could send him tumbling into the molten fissures below. Yet he did not hesitate. The hatchlings depended on him. The colony whispered warnings whenever he prepared for the night. "It's too dangerous," one of the engineers had said. "You could die in a storm or fall into a vent." The scientist who oversaw the energy shields had laughed softly. "Those creatures are wild, Callan. They could burn you alive if you get too close." But Callan ignored them all. No one else had the courage and no one else could feel the connection he felt. He had first discovered the hatchlings months ago, hidden in a narrow crevice near the northern vent. They were no bigger than a human child, scales glinting like molten metal, eyes glowing faintly like embers in the dark. Callan had approached slowly, hands empty, heart steady. One by one they had emerged from the shadows, chirping and nudging him with tiny snouts. From that moment, he had taken it upon himself to care for them. The path to the feeding ground was a maze of black rock and molten fissures. Every night was a challenge. Sometimes the wind carried volcanic ash into his face, stinging his eyes. Sometimes the rocks shifted unexpectedly, leaving gaps and cracks where the night was ready to swallow him whole. Callan navigated with careful steps, scanning the ground for hazards while keeping a hand ready to protect the hatchlings if they ran from him in fear. He reached the edge of the crater, a vast pit of jagged rock and glowing lava pools. The hatchlings were there, huddled together, their small wings trembling with anticipation. Callan knelt, placing the rations on the cracked stone. Their eyes followed him, watching, waiting, trusting. He felt a surge of something he could not name, pride, hope, and fear all at once. The colony's survival might depend on these creatures one day, he thought. And yet, he was the only one who knew how delicate and dangerous they could be. Suddenly, a rumble shook the ground. Callan froze. The hatchlings stiffened, tails flicking nervously. The vent in the center of the crater shivered, and a plume of hot gas hissed upward. Callan grabbed a nearby rock for balance as the edge of the crater quivered beneath him. He had learned to respect the unpredictable nature of Vera 9. The planet itself seemed alive, testing anyone who dared walk its surface. The hatchlings chirped in unison, a sound both urgent and fearful. Callan held his breath and crouched lower, trying to calm them. One tiny dragon stepped forward, its glowing eyes reflecting the light from the lava below. It moved closer to the rations and then stopped, glancing at him as if to ask for guidance. Callan extended a hand slowly. "It's okay. I'm not leaving you," he whispered. The hatchling inched forward, nudged a ration with its snout, and then darted back into the shadows. Night after night, this routine repeated. Callan learned their patterns, their fears, and their small joys. He memorized every crack in the rocks, every dangerous vent, every weak ledge. His courage grew not because he had no fear, but because he chose to act despite it. Every step, every choice, carried the weight of their fragile lives and the survival of the colony. But tonight something felt different. The air was thick, almost electric. The hatchlings clustered near the vent, more restless than usual, their tiny wings trembling in a strange rhythm. Callan watched them, sensing an energy he could not explain. The ground beneath him vibrated subtly, not like the usual tremors of the planet, but something deeper, something alive. He bent closer to the hatchlings, studying their scales, the faint glow in their eyes, the way they shifted and hissed almost like a warning. His heart beat faster. He had never seen this behavior before. He felt the weight of uncertainty pressing down on him. For the first time, he realized that these creatures, which he had been feeding nightly, might not be ordinary at all. A shadow passed over the crater, stretching across the glowing lava like a moving wall of darkness. Callan's eyes darted upward. He could not see clearly in the storm-dark sky, but the hatchling stiffened as if recognizing the presence. His stomach tightened. Whatever it was massive, and it was watching him. Callan swallowed hard and clenched his fists. There was no turning back. Whatever waited above, whatever secret the hatchlings were hiding, he had committed to seeing it through. Humanity had placed itself on a fragile rock in a hostile galaxy, and he was determined to protect what few wonders remained, even if it meant facing something beyond imagination. The hatchlings chirped louder, the rhythm quickening as the shadows seemed to linger. Callan's pulse raced. Tonight would be unlike any night before. Tonight he realized the dragons were not just creatures to feed, they were messengers of something far greater. And somewhere beyond the clouds of Vera 9, something ancient stirred. The morning after the shadow passed over the crater, Callan could still feel the tremor in his chest. He did not sleep. The hatchlings had kept him awake with restless chirps, their tiny bodies shivering in ways he had never seen before. Something had changed in them overnight, something urgent, something that his human mind could not yet comprehend. Back at the colony, the Zyphar ships had returned to orbit. Callan watched the glowing silhouettes of their sleek, alien hulls cutting through the planet's thin atmosphere. Each one radiated menace, scanning for any sign of human activity. Their technology was far beyond what the colony had, and yet humans had survived this long. They survived because of ingenuity, courage, and a stubborn refusal to surrender. Callan felt that stubbornness burning in his chest. He prepared for the next feeding. The hatchlings had been more skittish than usual, hiding in deeper shadows, their eyes glowing faintly as if anticipating some unseen threat. Callan's hands moved with precision as he gathered the rations, checking sensors, adjusting his heat shield against the erratic vent blasts. Every step was careful, the stakes had grown. It was no longer just feeding, they had become guardians of something far larger than themselves. As he approached the crater, the wind cut like knives against his face. The ground underfoot shook subtly, and Callan had to steady himself against a jutting rock. The hatchlings were waiting, perched on the edges of the fissures, wings flicking nervously. Their behavior was different now, it was coordinated, almost strategic. Callan knelt, placing the rations in the center of the cavern. They circled the food but did not approach immediately, their glowing eyes tracking him with a vigilance he had never seen before. A sudden vibration ran through the crater floor. Callan froze, scanning the rocks. The vent at the center pulsed with heat waves, throwing off arcs of molten energy. The hatchlings scattered to the edges, small shadows moving in unison, reacting to something he could not yet detect. The storm above intensified and lightning split the sky, reflecting off the crystalline cliffs. Callan's communicator buzzed sharply. "Callan. Status report." It was Commander Rena Kessler. Her voice carried urgency. Zyphar orbital scans indicate multiple dropships preparing to land. Estimated touchdown in 10 hours. Callan clenched his jaw. 10 hours. He had less than half a day to protect the hatchlings, to understand whatever had shifted in them overnight, and to prepare the colony for a threat it could barely withstand. "Understood," he said. "I'll manage." He ended the call and focused on the hatchlings. Their chirps were higher, sharper, almost like alarms. Callan crouched, holding out his hand. One small dragon approached, scales flickering like embers in the lava light. He extended a ration toward it. It paused, then struck the food gently with its snout, retreating immediately as a low hum resonated through the crater. Callan's head snapped up. A wave of energy shimmered across the rocks, rippling through the crater like invisible fingers. He realized with a mix of awe and fear that the hatchlings were generating it. The small creatures could manipulate energy fields. That explained the strange tremors, the way the vents pulsed and quivered as if alive. His mind raced. If the Zyphar discovered this, they would harvest the hatchlings for their power, weaponize it, and the colony would be annihilated. But the hatchlings were fragile. One misstep, one miscalculated move, and they could be destroyed. Callan felt the weight of impossibility pressing down. He knelt among them, whispering, "I won't let anyone hurt you. Trust me. We survived together." The largest hatchling, a tiny figure with scales darker than the night, approached him, tilting its head as if acknowledging his words. A faint pulse of light ran through its body, brushing against his hand. It was warm, intelligent, alive in a way he could barely comprehend. The tremors grew stronger, louder, until the rocks beneath his knees cracked. A vent suddenly erupted, sending a plume of scalding gas into the air. Callan rolled to the side, shielding himself with his cloak. One hatchling darted into his arms, its tiny claws digging into his armor. Callan held it tight, heart pounding. Survival was no longer a matter of routine, it was a fight with nature itself. He had to move fast. Callan grabbed a pack of energy cells and set them around the crater's perimeter, connecting them to makeshift conduits. He wasn't just feeding them anymore, he was preparing defenses. If the Zyphar landed, they would not only face human ingenuity, They would face creatures capable of manipulating energy fields in ways humans were only beginning to understand. Hours passed like minutes. Callan monitored every hatchling, noting their reactions, predicting the patterns in their behavior. Each pulse of light, each flick of a wing was data. His mind raced through calculations, potential contingencies, possible threats. Every decision could mean life or death for both humans and dragons. Then, just as the first Zyphar ships pierced the upper atmosphere, the hatchlings reacted as one. A synchronized wave of energy shot across the crater floor, rippling through the rocks and vents. Callan stepped back, shielding his face as the air shimmered. The energy was not violent, it was precise, deliberate. The hatchlings were preparing, and somehow he knew they understood the stakes. Callan swallowed hard, heart thundering. He realized that the night's challenge was only beginning. The Zyphar were coming, and the creatures he had nurtured were no ordinary dragons. If humanity was to survive, he would need to understand them, and fast. The shadow of the first dropship fell across the crater, cutting off the last of the fading sunlight. Callan tightened his grip on the hatchling in his arms. His mind sharpened. His courage was no longer optional, it was the only thing standing between the colony and total annihilation. And somewhere deep within the rocks, he sensed it. The secret the hatchlings were guarding had begun to stir. The Zyphar dropships sliced through Vera 9's thin atmosphere, silent shadows against the electric sky. Callan crouched on the edge of the crater, the largest hatchling pressed against his chest. Its tiny heart pounded as fiercely as his own. He could feel the energy pulsing through its body, subtle but undeniable, like a heartbeat that could shake mountains. Callan scanned the horizon. The colony below was a speck of light amid jagged cliffs and dark plains. Without the hatchling's protection, it would be annihilated in minutes. His fingers tightened on the hatchling's wings. Every second counted. He had to understand them, had to find a way to use their power before the Zyphar landed. The hatchlings stirred, their glowing eyes darting toward a narrow passage at the far side of the crater. Callan followed, heart hammering. The cavern was narrow, its walls jagged and slick with crystallized minerals. It twisted deeper than any tunnel he had seen, descending into shadows that even his visor lights barely penetrated. The air grew warmer, tinged with an electric hum. Then he saw it. A vast chamber opened before him, wide enough to hold an entire fleet of ships, yet filled with the soft, pulsating light of thousands of dragon eyes. And in the center of it all, larger than anything he had imagined, was the Star Empress. Her scales shimmered like galaxies, black and violet streaked with fiery sparks. Her wings, folded around her, stretched across the cavern walls, reflecting and bending light in impossible patterns. Callan froze. The hatchlings moved toward her, chirping softly, their bodies glowing brighter with each step. The Empress lowered her massive head, her eyes locking onto him. For a moment, Callan felt paralyzed. Her gaze was not angry, it was calculating, intelligent, filled with a wisdom that spanned centuries, maybe millennia. She studied him as if weighing every thought, every choice he had ever made. Then came the revelation. The Star Empress exhaled a low, resonant hum that vibrated through the cavern. Callan felt it in his chest, in his bones. It was a language not of words but of thought, images flashing in his mind. The dragon's lineage, their origin from a dying star, their purpose as guardians of cosmic energy. And most importantly, she showed him the truth about the hatchlings he had fed every night. They were her children, and their survival was tied to the fate of civilizations across the galaxy. Callan staggered back, overwhelmed. I didn't know, he whispered aloud. His words sounded foolish in the presence of such immense power. He had only wanted to feed them, to protect them from the harsh world. He had never imagined that simple acts of courage and care could ripple across the stars. The Star Empress tilted her head, wings shifting slightly. The hatchlings chirped in unison, responding to her signals. Then she focused on Callan again. Images surged through his mind. The Zyphar fleet approaching, the colony's vulnerability, the power of the dragons if used wisely, and the consequences if misused. Humanity could survive, she seemed to say, but only if one human acted with courage, intelligence, and heart. Callan's mind raced. He understood what he had to do. He had to coordinate the hatchlings not just for feeding or defense, but as allies in a battle that no human army could face alone. He had to turn instinct into strategy, fear into action. And he had to convince the Star Empress that humans were worthy of trust. A sudden pulse of energy radiated from the Empress, brushing against Callan's body. He staggered but caught himself. The cavern vibrated, rocks shifting slightly. The hatchlings responded, moving in precise formations, wings and tails coordinating in patterns he had never seen. They were preparing, waiting for his command. Callan realized something extraordinary. The dragons were not only intelligent, they were capable of instinctively understanding human intent. If he could harness their energy, channel it with precision, they could protect the colony from the Zyphar ships. It would be dangerous. Misstep and the colony or the hatchlings, or both, could be destroyed. But the alternative was certain death. He took a deep breath, feeling the weight of responsibility. "We can do this," he said aloud, more to himself than to anyone else. The hatchlings chirped in response, tiny sparks of light bouncing off the cavern walls. It was a silent agreement. They trusted him because he had acted with care, courage, and determination. Callan moved closer to the center of the chamber, observing the Empress's energy flow through her children. Each hatchling pulsed in a synchronized rhythm, a living network of power. Callan studied their patterns, noting how one pulse triggered another, how the smallest movements could amplify energy across the cavern. He began to plot, calculating the sequence he would need to protect the colony, linking instinct, energy, and human ingenuity into a single strategy. The first warning came as a low thrum in the cavern floor. He glanced up at the narrow entrance. Shadowed forms moved above, reflected faintly in the Empress's luminous wings. Zyphar dropships descending into the atmosphere. Callan's pulse quickened. There was no turning back. The Star Empress lowered her massive head slightly, wings partially unfurling. It was a gesture of acknowledgement, a test, or perhaps a challenge. Callan understood. The dragons were not just allies, they were extensions of her will, and she would judge humanity's worth by how they acted in the coming moments. He straightened, adrenaline sharpening every thought. Every second counted. He had faced storms, lava vents, and shadows before, but nothing like this. Now, against the approaching Zyphar fleet, he was not just protecting a colony. He was defending the future of a species, guided by courage, intelligence, and the trust of cosmic beings. Callan looked down at the hatchlings, their small glowing eyes fixed on him. "We fight together," he whispered. The cavern seemed to hum in response. The Star Empress's presence radiated power, filling the space with anticipation. Somewhere in the storm-dark sky above Vera 9, the Zyphar ships prepared to strike. And below, a human and a brood of dragons were about to change the odds in a battle that no one else believed could be won. Callan didn't waste a second. The Zyphar dropships were already breaking through the upper atmosphere, their metallic hulls glinting in the fractured light of the storm above Vera 9. His mind raced as he scanned the cavern, watching the hatchlings pulse with energy in response to the Star Empress's silent signals. This was no longer about feeding creatures. This was about survival, strategy, and courage beyond human limits. He moved quickly, adjusting conduits he had laid earlier in the crater, connecting energy nodes to harness the dragon's natural pulses. The hatchlings responded instinctively, their wings and tails flicking in patterns he could barely anticipate. Every pulse amplified the energy field around the crater, bending the ambient lightning, creating a shimmering shield that danced over the rocks. Callan's pulse quickened. He realized the field could disrupt the Zyphar ships if he timed it correctly, but the calculations had to be perfect. One misstep, one wrong sequence, and the colony would be annihilated, or worse, the hatchlings could be destroyed. He couldn't afford fear, only precise courage would do. The first Zyphar ship pierced the outer layer of the storm, its energy weapons charging. Callan shouted commands, guiding the hatchlings through instinctive gestures and rhythmic claps, almost like conducting an orchestra of living energy. The smallest hatchling darted to a conduit and struck it with a claw, releasing a synchronized pulse that cascaded through the network. Sparks arced across the cavern floor, illuminating the jagged walls and Callan's determined face. The Zyphar fired. Bolts of searing energy tore toward the crater, but the dragon's field absorbed them, bending the weapons harmlessly into the sky. Callan watched, heart hammering, as the hatchlings responded faster than any human could anticipate, each pulse amplified by the next, creating a living shield that shimmered like a river of stars. But the Zyphar were relentless. Multiple ships adjusted their trajectories, flanking the crater, firing in unison to overwhelm the energy field. Callan ducked as debris from the rocky walls rained down from the initial impact. He shouted, signaling the hatchlings to intensify the pulses, synchronize, and redirect energy outward. He realized something extraordinary: the hatchlings could instinctively understand the flow of energy. They reacted not only to his commands but to the situation itself, predicting the Zyphar's moves. He had never seen anything like it. Humans had built technology that could predict patterns, but these creatures operated on intuition fused with cosmic power. Callan's mind raced. If he could channel their energy correctly, they could turn the tide entirely. He mapped the pulses in his head, each one a beat in a dangerous rhythm. He used his starship engineering knowledge to calculate the resonance frequency, combining it with the dragon's natural energy patterns. It was a risky gamble. He had never tried to control them this precisely, but hesitation would mean death. The next Zyphar wave struck. This time, Callan directed the pulses to converge at a single point, creating a shockwave that flung one of the dropships off course. Sparks rained from its hull as it tumbled into a crater, exploding in a flash that lit the night. The hatchlings chirped in a rhythm that felt like celebration, but there was no time for relief. More ships descended, faster, angrier. Callan adjusted, recalibrating the conduit angles, shouting commands, and moving among the hatchlings as they moved in perfect harmony with his calculations. He felt the heat of their energy surging through the cavern, a living network of power guided by his mind and their instincts. He pushed beyond fear, beyond exhaustion, beyond doubt. Humanity had no other choice but to rise to this impossible challenge, and he was proving it with every breath. One by one the Zyphar ships faltered. Their energy weapons misfired against the fluctuating fields, hulls igniting under the strain. Callan ducked as a small pulse from a hatchling struck a conduit wrong, sending a flash of energy across the cavern. He winced, expecting disaster, but the creatures adapted instantly, correcting the rhythm. Their intelligence, combined with his ingenuity, turned near failure into advantage. Hours, or maybe minutes, time blurred under the intensity, passed like this. Callan barely noticed the storm above. He was entirely focused on the hatchlings, his own survival, and the protection of the colony below. Finally, the last Zyphar ship attempted a desperate strike. Callan calculated the final pulse, guiding the hatchlings to combine their energy into one concentrated wave. The resulting blast tore through the air like a comet, intercepting the Zyphar vessel mid-descent. It exploded in a cascade of sparks and fire, tumbling harmlessly into the lava plains. The cavern went quiet. The hatchlings chirped softly, wings folding as the pulses slowed. Callan collapsed to his knees, chest heaving, hands shaking. The energy field around the crater hummed weakly, dissipating as the danger passed. He looked up at the Star Empress, who now stood fully revealed, wings spread in a cosmic display of light. She exhaled a low, resonant hum that seemed like approval, an acknowledgement that humanity had met the impossible and prevailed. Callan's mind still raced, adrenaline slowly ebbing. He had faced advanced alien technology, unpredictable cosmic creatures, and impossible odds, and survived. The hatchlings clustered around him, glowing faintly, alive and unharmed. For the first time, he understood the full magnitude of what they represented: power beyond comprehension, intelligence beyond expectation, and trust earned through courage. He realized humanity had not only survived the Zyphar, they had earned a place in a greater cosmic order. Callan looked down at the hatchlings, whispering, "We did it, together." The creatures chirped in response, a tiny, vibrant symphony of life and energy. Above, the storm clouds began to part, revealing the stars. Somewhere in the galaxy, forces older than humanity watched, taking note of this human's courage. Callan had proven that even in the face of overwhelming power, one determined human could turn the tide. One human could inspire hope, ingenuity, and survival against impossible odds. But the Star Empress's gaze lingered. The hatchlings were only part of the story, and Callan felt that greater challenges lay ahead. For now, though, victory was his. Humanity had triumphed, not through numbers or weapons or luck, but through courage, intelligence, and heart. And deep in the cavern, a secret waited, something even the Star Empress had not yet fully revealed. Callan did not know it, but the night had only just begun, and the next revelation would change everything. The cavern was quiet now, the energy pulses of the hatchlings slowing to soft, rhythmic glows. Callan sank to his knees, exhausted, but his eyes remained fixed on the Star Empress. She stood at the center, enormous and radiant, wings partially folded, scales shimmering like distant galaxies. For a long moment, nothing moved except the hatchlings huddled around her. Then the Empress lowered her head, eyes locking onto Callan. A surge of images and feelings entered his mind, not words, not speech, but pure thought and memory. He saw the galaxy itself, stars burning and dying, civilizations rising and falling. He felt the passage of centuries compressed into a heartbeat. And he understood, with a mixture of awe and disbelief, the truth the hatchlings had been guarding all along. They were not just creatures. They were heirs to a cosmic power, guardians of an energy that could reshape worlds. The Star Empress communicated a single resonant thought. The dragon's mother line had always watched civilizations, measuring them for courage, intelligence, and morality. She had chosen this moment to reveal herself because Callan had proven worthy, not through strength or cunning alone, but through relentless compassion, calculated bravery, and unwavering determination to protect life. Humanity, small and fragile, had earned recognition among forces older than time. Callan swallowed hard, trying to breathe steadily. I don't know what to say," he whispered. His voice sounded faint against the cavern's hum. The Star Empress inclined her head slightly, as if acknowledging his humility. In that moment, Callan realized that words were unnecessary. Actions had already spoken for him. The hatchlings chirped softly, their small bodies glowing in harmonious rhythm with their mother. Callan reached out to touch the nearest one, feeling warmth and energy coursing through his gloves. It was almost like touching a living star. He remembered every night he had spent carrying rations across treacherous cliffs, every time he had faced storms, molten vents, and the uncertainty of life and death. Each small act of care had led to this moment, the culmination of courage and perseverance. The Empress's presence radiated calm, yet power beyond imagining. Her massive eyes scanned the cavern, taking in every detail. Then she extended a single clawed limb toward the conduit network Callan had built to harness the hatchling's energy. The energy flowed differently now, stronger, more cohesive, as if the Star Empress herself was amplifying it. Callan's jaw tightened. He realized that humanity had been given a chance, not just to survive, but to become a true partner in this cosmic balance. Callan looked back toward the colony, now safe under the lingering energy shield. The Zyphar had retreated, their fleet scattered and broken. The humans below would rebuild, unaware of the scale of the miracle that had saved them. Yet Callan knew it was only the beginning. This secret, this power would demand vigilance, courage, and intelligence to guard, not just from alien enemies, but from the weight of responsibility itself. He turned to the Star Empress. I promise," he said, voice firm despite exhaustion, "we will honor your trust. We will protect them, protect the colony, and learn from what you've shown us." The Empress's eyes softened, glowing brighter for a moment. The hatchlings chirped in agreement, surrounding him like a living constellation. The cavern walls seemed to shimmer as if acknowledging his vow. Callan felt a deep warmth spread through him, not just from the dragons but from something he could not fully describe. The sense that humanity had taken its first real step into a larger universe. The Star Empress exhaled a low hum that vibrated through his chest. It was both a blessing and a challenge. As dawn crept into the outer edges of the crater, Callan led the hatchlings back toward the colony. Their small bodies moved with him in perfect coordination, energy flowing subtly around them, a living network of guardianship and trust. Villagers emerged from the protective shelters, eyes wide with awe as they glimpsed the glowing creatures for the first time. They did not yet understand their power, but they could see the courage and determination in Callan's posture, the careful care with which he guided the hatchlings. Callan paused on a rocky outcrop, looking up at the skies. Somewhere above, the Star Empress watched, her silhouette framed by clouds and lightning. He knew she had more to reveal, secrets that would test humanity again, challenges that would demand even greater courage. But for now there was triumph. Humanity had survived. Humanity had earned trust from forces beyond comprehension. And one human, one ordinary man, had reminded the galaxy what courage, morality, and determination could achieve. The hatchlings chirped, their energy pulsing softly. Callan smiled, exhaustion giving way to relief. He knelt and touched the ground, feeling the warmth of the planet, the energy of life, and the promise of a future that humans could now shape. The Star Empress stirred again, wings unfurling slightly, as if inviting him to step forward into a larger destiny. Callan rose, steady and resolute. Humanity had been tested, and it had risen. He had seen the impossible and acted anyway, and the consequences of courage were written in light and life around him. The Star Empress's secret had been revealed, but more importantly, Callan understood this truth. Humans could endure, adapt, and shine even in the most impossible circumstances. That understanding, this courage and determination, would guide humanity into a universe where the stars themselves waited to be challenged, protected, and inspired. And as the first rays of the new Vera 9 day broke over the jagged cliffs, the hatchlings chirped one last time, wings flaring gently as if declaring to the world, humans had not only survived, they had earned their place in the cosmos.